Today's episode is all about optimal fitness programming. That is, how to design a fitness and exercise program that can achieve the goals that you want for fitness and for sports performance.
The two largest reasons why people don't get results with their fitness training protocol is number one, adherence, and then number two, some sort of progressive overload. Both of those two things are challenging to accomplish without a plan. So the reason people don't go to the gym, one of them, and one of the reasons why it takes them so long is because they don't walk in with a very specific plan. It's sort of like going to the grocery store and figuring out what you're going to buy versus knowing exactly what you're going to get in your shopping list, grabbing those things and getting out. You'll notice your time in the grocery store is half the length. You're more productive and you didn't waste money on extra things.
So what sorts of things should people be thinking about when developing an overall fitness program?
I would like to walk you through my 10-step approach to how I design training programs. Now, before I do that, I think it is fair and important for the audience to understand that this is simply my approach. I've been doing this a long time. There are many, many ways one could do this. So step number one is assessing properly and identifying a training goal. It is step number one on purpose. We have to know exactly where we're going. You can do this in two ways. Way number one is to just pick something. Arbitrarily decide, I'm going to run a 5K, or I've done that before and I want to improve it by 10 seconds. I want to lose 10 pounds. You can just pick one. That's great. Another way is to run through that fitness testing protocol. And if you do that, you can see which of these areas that maybe you have the largest lagging in, or what is the most severe performance, how we refer to it, and then choose that as your primary goal. Something like efficiency or whatever is most interesting. Number two is identifying your defender. What I mean by that is, what is stopping you from hitting that goal? So you want to lose 2% body fat in the next year. Okay, great. What's going to stop this? So you might have to go something like this. Look, every time I start working out really hard, I always get hurt. Interesting. Okay, great. So maybe instead of jumping really hard into an high intensity interval training program, knowing we're likely to hurt something or get burnt out or quit or whatever the defender is for you, maybe we invest something right now, which is maybe improving your flexibility or working on movement technique, whatever's going to stop you from getting hurt. Or maybe we progress slower so we don't get there. That will allow us to do the work necessary to hit that goal 12 months from now, not 2 weeks from now, not 2 months from now. Number three here is going to be what I call calendar or sort of time frame. So it's going back a little bit and saying you've decided on this goal and you've identified the defenders. Now we need to come up with a realistic time frame for how long it's going to take to accomplish that goal. And when you do that, you need to look at your life schedule. And what I mean by that is, do you have important deadlines coming up? Do you have a holiday? Do you have a trip? Do you have travel? Do your children have something coming up? So let's imagine you're going to plot out, say, a 12-week training phase, and you've decided on this goal. And then you look and you realize in the middle of this 12-week span, week 5 is really hectic and chaotic. Or you realize that this is a quarter in which something important is due. Maybe we want to either adjust the goal, or what we really do in this step is going on to actually step number 4, which is choose the number of days per week you can exercise and the length in terms of amount of time you can truly afford to train. How many days a week can you train, and how long in terms of minutes per workout? Notice, we haven't selected a single exercise yet. We haven't worried about how heavy, rest intervals, all those modifiable variables. You don't need to pick those later. First, where are we going? Second, how are we going to get there, which is the quadrant, and identifying of defenders. And now the third is, what are the restrictions I need to place on myself in terms of program design based on how often and how long I can work out. Now what you want to do is go to step number 5, which is actually select your exercises or your movements. And this can be as simple as selecting running or swimming. It could be your entire exercise mode. What you want to do with exercise selection here is make sure that you're balancing those exercises across the whole week, not within necessarily every workout. So if you have 4 days a week, 5 days a week, you want to look at the exercise selection and say, okay, I need to have somewhat of a reasonable balance between movement patterns or muscle groups or front and back, side to side, however you're thinking of it, just across that week. Number 6 now is just order. So you know how many days per week you're going to work out. You know how long they're going to take. You've selected all the exercises you need to get done. You've balanced that across the week. Now you just need to put them in order. And the easy answer here is generally do what's most important first in the workout. You could do your endurance training before you're lifting if you understand that means you might be compromising your lifting quality of the workout a little bit. But you might be fine with that if you say the endurance work is more important. Amazing. You don't know the answer to that though if you hadn't gone through steps 1 through 4. And that's why those things are critical. So it makes what we call chaos management, which is things happen in the moment. I don't know what to do. What should I choose? That decision becomes really clear because you can always go back to the beginning and go, my priority was this. Then therefore that's my choice today. So number 7 and 8 are pretty simple. This is now choose the intensity and the volume. So we've discussed those at length in the previous episodes. We probably don't have the time to go back over all those details. So remember the adaptation you're training for and pick the appropriate rep range, total amount of sets, as well as the intensity to then get the corresponding adaptation, right? All you have to do is select those things. In terms of progression for a week, the rule of thumb we say for intensity is something around 3% per week, right? For volume, it will depend on what you're doing a little bit, but anytime you cross more than 10% per week, you're going to start running into problems. So I like 5% better. It doesn't need to be as low as 3. You can jump up much more than that. 5 to 7% is better. So if you are doing, say, running, because the numbers make it easy, and you're doing 10 miles per week total, and if you were to go up to 11 miles the next week, great, you're right around 10%. You can increase the volume by either more sets, more reps, or more total exercises in a day.
What about time under tension?
You could also manipulate how the tempo of each repetition. You could also manipulate how many times per day you train. So you can manipulate frequency. You can also manipulate rest intervals. So you can progressively load any of these things. Increase intensity. Run a little bit faster. Complete the same amount of work slightly faster. Put 5% more on the barbell or the load or the handle or whatever you're going to do. That's a simple way. Step number 9 of designing your own training program, which is fill in the rest intervals, which reflect back again the goal. So generally higher rest intervals, which means time that you rest between your sets, higher, somewhere between 2 to 5 minutes for things like speed, power, and strength. Perhaps a little bit lower, although as you mentioned, it could also stay high for hypertrophy. And then for endurance, you follow the rest interval that reflects the type of endurance training that you'd like to get. That's walked us through 1 through 9. We're almost done. We've put together a pretty nice little protocol. It should be well-rounded. It should be effective. We've also talked about how to progress it from week to week, keeping it within, again, 4 to 6 weeks, maybe up to 8, before we then take a back off. The very last thing we have to do to make sure this training program is customized to you, your goal, and your situation, which is then going to enhance your likelihood of adherence and consistency, as well as increase the likelihood of effectiveness, is we just have to do a little bit of what we call chaos management, which is take a quick moment to think through, this program looks great, but if I had to nitpick it, where are the possible chances of failure? And you just want to sort of think about, where would I predict things would go wrong? And if anything pops out to you, try to come up with your solution at the beginning. And this could be a number of things. So maybe you've picked an exercise and you realize, man, I really actually don't like that exercise. Or maybe you look at the schedule now that it's laid out in front of you. You look at your work schedule and you're like, maybe that's a bit aggressive. I don't know. It could be any of a number of things. But it is a useful exercise to just think through everything realistically. So I created a program which should run about a year. And the idea here is that this could be an evergreen system. So one could check off all the boxes that we've talked about. So in general, we want to have 3 primary goals with exercise. We want to look a certain way, whatever that means to you. We want to be able to perform a certain way, whether that's for life goals like hiking and energy or sport goals or whatever. And then we want to be able to do that across our lifespan. Okay, so a program that gives you all the goals we talked about, and a program that covers that health combine that we referred to way back in some of our earlier discussions, which, as a little bit of a recap, is what are the physical fitness parameters that we know are critical to maintaining both lifespan and wellness span? And as a bit of a reminder, those are things like your grip strength, your leg strength, your total amount of muscle mass, your actual speed and power so that you can catch yourself from a fall, your VO2 max, and your physical fitness.